back to Financial Minds Meet the Experts. I'm your host, Jaime Agostino. In case you're new to listening to our show, this is where we're joined by financial industry experts to talk about topics, trends, and themes that credit union professionals need to know about. Today, we're meeting Ciara LaVelle, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for Pheple Federal Credit Union. Ciara, welcome. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
All right. So before we get started, would you mind telling our listeners just a little bit about yourself?
Yes. As mentioned, my name is Ciara. I have been involved with the credit union movement for the past 11 years. And I know when I say that, most people look at me like, you're relatively young. But it was my first job, and I just fell in love with the movement and the mission of people helping people. And it just really connected to who I am as a person. So I am super excited to be here speaking on DEI today and representing people. So thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. All right, so let's kind of jump right in. So you're the DEI officer for Pheple Federal Credit Union, but what was it that made you want to take on this role? Why is DEI so important to you?
Yes. So I'm going to start with why DEI is so important to me. And it all comes back to my upbringing. I grew up in Westmoreland County, Western Pennsylvania, and it's not exactly the breadbasket of diversity. So I struggled for a long time not seeing people that looked like me, but also not having people around me with a similar experience on life as I did. So in other words, basically what led me to DEI is personal experience and not feeling like I belonged within the education system as a young adult. Then entering the credit union, I kind of, not as much, but I felt those same feelings of sometimes being an outsider and not necessarily having a voice in conversations and feeling like I belong. So when the DEI role became an opportunity, I was super excited to not only be a part of opening that conversation for people that typically aren't already involved in it, but having an impact on individuals that share a similar experience of me and not necessarily feeling like they belong. So it was super, super exciting to not only impact our members, but to impact our internal team and see where diversity can take us on our journey.
All right. Well, what has been your journey? What has it been like, with DEI?
It's been super, super impactful. I would say at the beginning, it was a lot of laying the foundation and creating awareness, understanding that our experience in the way that we see the world is not the only way to experience the world or even experience the credit union movement. So for the first 2 years, it was a lot of just creating awareness and education. And then from there, we faced some challenges on the way, which is expected with DEI. I always say it's a marathon and not a sprint. And what I mean by challenges is it's hard sometimes for people to understand that the world is different for other people and allowing them to put themselves in other people's shoes and be willing to listen to sometimes how our actions or our lack of actions make others feel. Skipping to today, 5 years later on our DEI journey, it has been rewarding. It is phenomenal seeing the growth within our organization specifically. But now it's our natural mindset to put others' feelings or to put other perspectives before our own to create a better understanding.
All right. So how are you leading the DEI efforts at Pheple Federal Credit Union, and what is Pheple doing to ensure that it is creating a diverse, equitable, and inclusive culture?
So the exciting part about our journey is it didn't start with me. So we partnered with humanity in the beginning because we were so involved, but we didn't know what to do. So, and a lot of credit unions often find themselves of wanting to make the right move, but wanting to make it with intention. So we partnered with Jill Nowacki at Humanity, and she basically let us know in an employee report through focus groups what we were doing well, but what we could improve upon. So from there, we developed our internal DEI council, which I used to sit on before I became the DEI officer. And every year we came up with strategic goals to kind of fill those gaps of inclusivity, not only recognizing what we were doing well, but trying to create new initiatives to figure out what we weren't doing as well to continue to see progression in our movement. Skipping forward to today, what we have done is we've intentionally diversified our board, which has been phenomenal to see over the years. Understanding that your board is to represent your entire membership and the people that sit around that table, they have a purpose and they have a responsibility to use their voice at that table. Now we do all sorts of initiatives. We do mental health check-ins. That's something new. We realized through our focus groups that the pandemic has taken a toll on our internal team's mental health. So we offer 2 open forums where employees can attend and be their authentic self and talk about things that aren't necessarily from 9 to 5, just letting them know that they have the safety in that space to do that. Our most recent initiative is we're launching a caregiver employee resource group. We have a lot of employees at our organization that are in a role of being responsible for maybe an adult child or an elderly parent. So our intention with that was to create a community where there's understanding and safety, where they can lean on one another and help us understand what people can do better to serve those employees within those roles.
Well, what is some of the feedback then that you've been getting from employees about, these DEI initiatives there at Pheple? And, what was the most difficult part of implementing the DEI program and the initiatives?
So the feedback has been mostly positive. We get a lot more feedback now than we did in the beginning, and I think in the beginning people have to kind of feel the temperature and check the water and see exactly what does DEI mean, but most importantly, what does it mean for your organization? As we continue to build momentum and demonstrate our impact not only within our community but within our employees, we've seen more participation and more positive feedback and people wanting to be involved with causes that may not necessarily resonate with them, which has been phenomenal to see that empathy impact. In terms of difficulty, sometimes it's hard depending on where you're at. Westmoreland County, like I said, is not exactly the breadbasket of diversity, but understanding that diversity isn't just what's on the surface. And that took us 2 years to really kind of drive home to our internal team is diversity is not just what you see with the naked eye. It could be your family status, your educational status, your mental health. So just really understanding our team on a deeper level has been a challenge, but it's been very impactful to see that we are more diverse than what you would assume our organization would be. The only other challenge that really comes to mind is switching from an equality mindset to an equity mindset. I think we're all raised that giving everyone the same thing is the right thing to do, where DEI really challenges that and allows you to understand that different people need different things, and that's okay. It's not necessarily unfair by providing someone with a different resource from another. Understanding that in order to better serve our members and to create impact for our employees, we must meet them as individuals and provide them with the specific tools and resources they need.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and you were kind of talking about them. There are a lot of what we always refer to as invisible diversity
Yes.
among staff. So
Mhm.
we say the same thing here at Viso Financial. So how does people represent itself as diverse, equitable inclusion without singling out or tokenizing, individuals?
And that is an excellent question. And I'm going to be transparent in the beginning. I don't feel like I did this necessarily right. So this has been a learning process for me as the DEI officer. But I would say moving with intentionality. Just to give you an example, we just celebrated, well, in February we had Black History Month, and we have 3 African American employees, myself being one of them. But understanding that, and this was an internal lesson as well, but understanding that my experience as an African American is not the only experience. And before maybe highlighting these initiatives and deciding where to go, it's always nice to have an initial conversation with the people of that community to see, am I in the right here? Or is this actually hurting this community more than it is advancing it? So it's been a lot about intentionality and communication in order to create belonging and not exclusion and unintentionally. And it's been a learning process, but understanding that if you have an internal DEI officer, my voice is not the only voice. And sometimes it's nice to consult with other people to make sure I'm not unintentionally excluding them by trying to do the opposite. So that's been my approach throughout these new initiatives of making sure I'm not singling out a group or making them feel like they're carrying the burden of this conversation.
All right. Well, I've been seeing in the news that you've been going out and speaking. So tell me, how are you leading DEI efforts across the state of Pennsylvania?
This has been a newer thing for me, and it's been super, super, super rewarding. I currently am involved with our side of the state. We have the Westmoreland Diversity Coalition. So I sit on a board where we come from different industries within the community, and we ask ourselves, what can we do to implement DEI on a community level, not just a financial sector level? And also, as you know, I'm honored to be a part of the Cross State Credit Union Association's Emerging Leaders. I sit on a council and I've had the opportunity to give 3 different sessions talking about DEI from a different lens and having the opportunity to have credit union executives from across the state come in and share their experiences and where they are at on their DEI journeys has been super, super rewarding. And it's nice to see that it's more normalized and it's something that credit unions the ball is moving. We're moving from intention to action. And then another thing I do is I think my internal team is great at this, but I get signed up for things, and it's just it goes from maybe speaking at a college once to all of a sudden they want you to come back, or they want to hear your insight on creating a center of belonging. One of the initiatives that sticks off the top of my mind is I'm actively involved with the Bender Leadership Academy, and their focus is to create employment for students with disabilities. So I try not to just pigeonhole myself in the credit union movement per se or Western Pennsylvania, but ask myself, what impact can I have on the entire state of Pennsylvania, and what can I do to really leave my footprint and hear my voice within the DEI space?
All right. What's your advice to other credit unions that are looking for ways to create or advance their DEI programs?
Yes, I would say take. I think a lot of times with DEI, people want to just run out of the gate, and that's not necessarily sometimes the best thing to do. And it's okay to take some time to create awareness and educate your team before really putting new initiatives in place. For us specifically, we started with our senior leadership team, we educated our board, and then we did an all staff training to understand why we were doing this first. I think it's important to create the why and allow your team to understand what is the mission or how it's connected to your mission before implementing new initiatives. Going from there, what we did, and I highly recommend it, is to create like a voluntary internal council within your organizations. We have 6 people that sit on ours from all different levels of the organization, and we diversify ourselves in terms of gender, race, age, gender identity, just to really not have one person hold the entire accountability and governance of the new initiatives, basically, I would say it's kind of like having a little mini board that kind of guides the organization and holds the organization accountable to living up to what their specific diversity, equity, and inclusion goals are. And then the final thing, and this is what we do at Pheple, is we have a 3-pillar approach. With every new initiative, we ask ourselves, what are we doing for our employees, our members, and our community? Just to make sure that our efforts aren't just internal or external focus, that we are tying the two together to make more purposeful impact.
All right. For credit unions that haven't done anything on DEI before, where should they start?
This is a great question, and I get this a lot. And I think the best thing to do is, if you see a credit union that's already starting or already doing things that you feel moved by, reach out. What I've noticed within this space is we truly help each other, and we are more than willing to provide insight on our hurdles or our successes throughout our DEI journeys. I would start with a conversation. Take some time to, even if it's on LinkedIn or whatever, on a homepage of a credit union, and see what they're doing, and ask yourself, what is our focus at our credit union? Are we looking to make an impact within our members? Are we looking to create an inclusive culture internally? Start with the conversation. And then from there, with us, it was intentional of creating a partnership with a consultant and understanding that we needed help to get the ball rolling. But once the ball was rolling, then we were then able to take it from there. So just sometimes talking to credit union people or even reaching out to an expert within the field helps those first steps to be more meaningful and done the right way, as opposed to sometimes an afterthought. And, so that's what we did. I don't think that's the right thing for everybody, but it has been very phenomenal for us to keep the ball rolling in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, and as you keep saying, I mean, it's a journey. And I don't think that we're ever going to have a destination. We're never just going to be able to be like, oh, we've done it, we're done.
Mhm.
It's constantly evolving. It's this constant journey, and just keeping on that path. And to your point, I love
Yes.
the pillar approach. That's fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
So April is Celebrate Diversity Month. What is people doing to celebrate diversity at your organization as well as in the community?
Yes. So and I in April, for some reason, to me it's always the most challenging, because when you have February, you have Black History Month or Women's History Month, you have one specific focus. But for April, I wanted to make sure that I was celebrating everyone and I wasn't excluding anyone from the conversation. So what we're doing internally and through the use of our little diversity wheel is we're having conversations about what makes us diverse beneath the surface. So for the first 2 years, we really focused on gender and race and age and all of those dimensions that you can see within the naked eye or our visible dimensions. This year, we're asking our employees to kind of peel back that first layer of the surface and let's talk about things that really make us who we are as individuals. And through those conversations, we've realized sometimes we have a lot more in common than you would assume that you originally did. Um, Other things that we are looking to do is we are partnered with the Westmoreland Diversity Coalition throughout their billboard project. So we have sponsored to be a part of their billboard, which will be in the community that states, I think our differences are our strengths. So understanding that it's okay to be different, and being different allows us to be innovative. It allows us to grow. It allows us to be more unique. So really changing that mindset of appreciating what makes you different and what makes us individuals. But other than that, on a fun note, we're doing an office potluck. Super excited about that, where everybody gets to bring in food from a nationality or a heritage that they haven't tried before. So sometimes those initiatives, they don't have to be very deep and thought provoking, but creating an openness to trying new things and to hearing new experiences. That is where currently we're starting. Typically with initiatives, they get going and people get excited and they branch off into other things. But that is the plan for April as of now at Pheple Federal Credit Union.
All right. Well, I might have to mark my calendar and make a drive out there
You may
for,
have
try
to.
all the potluck food items. Any final thoughts or advice for our listeners today?
Open. If DEI is something that you're looking to implement at your organizations, just being open and understanding that we're not always going to get it right, and that's okay. Sometimes you have to take a step sideways or a step back and refocus and realign with what we're trying to accomplish. So just taking time to define what you want your outcome to be, but giving yourself grace along the way, as it's still something new. It's still something that we are learning through progression. So that would be my final piece of advice.
All right. Well, thank you again for joining me today. To close out today's episode, I just want to remind you to tune into our upcoming economic update podcast. So at the end of the month, the economy is a hot topic these days. So our last FOMC meeting, the Fed raised 25 basis points. What's going to happen at the next meeting on May 3rd? We may not know for sure, but we will know that our EVP, Chief Investment Officer, Fred Eisel, and our Chief Credit Officer, Tim Sustek, they're going to have some ideas. We'll be welcoming them back to Financial Minds podcast on April 26th to hear their thoughts on what could be happening at the next FOMC meeting. With that, Ciara, I'm going to have one more question for you.
Yeah.
What is it that you love about the credit union industry?
I love, from an internal standpoint, I love as an emerging leader getting developed by people that aren't necessarily at my credit union, getting to connect with professionals that have been here way longer than me, but having an openness to sharing their knowledge and to really investing into the future of the credit union movement. Externally, being a frontline employee, I love the impact we have on our members and being able to get people into their first cars or their first houses when other financial institutions haven't been able to help them. Purpose is a lot to me, and I've truly been moved by our purpose and what we do on a daily basis at every credit union. So that would be my favorite aspect.
Yeah. No, well said. Thank you.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, I do feel like our purpose here is to make an impact, a positive
Yes.
impact on others. So thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you taking the time. With that, I'm going to say thank you to everyone listening and make it a great day.